Happy Sunday, everybody. Happy Sunday. It is Jillian broadcasting you live from Ohio, beautiful Canton, Ohio. And from my research, it's going to be one of the cheapest places to retire, and also will be relatively stable as far as longevity if you can handle all the fluctuations of the environment even beyond 2050, assuming that U.S. Navy map of the projected geological land masses are going to be what it's projecting. But we're already seeing that Mississippi is right now overflowing its banks, and part of Wisconsin and Iowa, Missouri, and other places are experiencing some major flooding. And I'm not discounting that the Ohio River would not flood at some point, but I will wait for that and see what happens. Or any other rivers that are somewhere nearby where I live. But yeah, we're living in a pre-programmed society. I mean, it started, as far as the actual programming where you can see where it started, just watch Back to the Future and watch the just all the episodes, the beginning and the middle and the end, or the 3 episodes, and then all the ones after that are like, okay. But watch, and look back at old Hollywood, look back at the planned communities of the 1950s. And you'll see, yeah, everything has been planned. And things were planned even before the 1950s, but that's a good place to start. Because that's even before some of you were born, or you were born around that era and your parents were part of that programmed system. And then you look at the 1960s and the cultural revolution and the beginning of the gangs, the civil rights, the sexual revolution, LGBTQ, and of course the porn industry. You'll look at just all the different religions that came up, all the science dogmas, all the scientific discoveries and uses to innovate a population, and all the different child rearing practices, okay, Dr. Spock, and the whole MK Ultra, and then you saw the rise of Disney and the Disney princesses and princes, and you see just how completely programmed people have been, but not know it, because when you're born into a family, into a culture, you don't know where that culture came from. You're told, well, we came from this time, like Mexico or from Africa, and then you recount whatever history that was told to you. And of course, all the trauma from some of the atrocities that happened in the past. And, I was raised in the world of after the 1960s, right? I was born in 74, came here in 75, and from Vietnam, came into a culture that was already developed, with all the gangs already started, the Crips, the Bloods, the Norteños, the Sureños, that's heavily in Silicon Valley, in San Jose, California. So I came into that world where there was a split, like a split of the white suburban Silicon Valley types before the tech industry really came in. It was mostly biotech that was in Silicon Valley. And there was orchards all over where I was raised in Saratoga. And then over time, you saw all the Mediterranean-style homes being built around the railroad tracks of Saratoga and Stelling Road. And then Highway 85 was built right through Saratoga, Sunnyvale, Cupertino. And so you saw the development of Silicon Valley. And there were still gangs. There were still, the Crips and the Bloods in the Bay Area, and the Sureños and Norteños, and there was still all the sexual stuff and the LGBTQ. And so, so when I never researched that based upon a context of where did the Crips and the Bloods come from? Where did the Norteños and Sureños come from? And then the prison system and all of that and the culture of that. And then now you're seeing, even on Netflix, the fallout from many generations. I mean, not that many, but a few generations of kids falling into that culture of gangs. And even I'm listening with my husband yesterday, when after that crazy, weird, paranormal experience, we're watching Ryan Upchurch, and he does the white country boy rap. And then we're watching other rap artists. I'm like, well, what about Asian rap? What about Hispanic rap? What about this kind of rap? And we're watching like Jelly Roll. My husband likes watching the artists, the country artists that do rap, Jelly Roll. And it was just like, it's just so the culture of the music and the artistry, and then also me watching last night on Netflix the rise, well, the justification for marijuana and how that fed into or developed like Louis Armstrong and all the jazz that came out of New Orleans, okay? And you see how drugs have encouraged a lot of artistry, talents. I mean, it developed a whole other culture and lifestyle and entertainment. When you think about lifestyle and entertainment in the magazine or in the newspapers on Sunday morning, like we used to go and get when we were kids in the 80s, we walked to the liquor store and get the Sunday paper, and I would read the funnies. My parents would read the lifestyle and entertainment or other stuff, the front page news, the back page news, and we'd get Newsweek, and we would get Time magazine, mostly Newsweek, and I'd read that, and all that. So, so when you have that gift of the past of remembering how society was constructed during your time, and then you study what happened in your parents' time, and then you study what's going on in the last like 20, 30 years of your adulthood, especially if you're a Gen Xer, you're putting it all together. And you're realizing, FDR with the safety net program, the America, the last greatest experiment. I mean, even though we were developed in 1776, and we were told that the Freemasons developed us, but they came from the Church of England, right? Because the Reformation happened in the 1500s, and there was the whole Henry VIII, and then England, and the breakaway from Rome, and England became its own thing, became a Freemason, and then the Freemasons went out to the world, and they wanted to settle the land of America, of which then the melting pot, and then of course all the different biological discoveries, protein discoveries, genetic discoveries, and genetic engineering, and developing a prototype, a very strong human. Then, of course, you have World War I and World War II, and then you can go from there. And so studying history is so important. Like, literally, study history, because you'll see history repeat itself in different ways with different words and different, I would say they're different words, but it's the same concept, okay? And so when I then figured out, okay, the Crips and the Bloods and Norteños, Sureños came out of the 1960s, it was just more confirmation that everything that I was raised in, even today, were based upon some major planning in the 1960s. But even before that, the 1960s was just the implementation of what was already set to go off, and then develop the future of then the transition to now climate change and the Georgia Guidestones and the conspiracy world and all that. And of course, you had the different people like Manson and Kacynski, Ted Kaczynski, and Manson, and all the different cult leaders after that, and all the rise of the religions, and even the newest ones, the star seeds, the energy healing, those are the newest ones, are the star seeds in the energy healing world, where it's not about racism to them, it's like energy manifestation. If your energy doesn't manifest the way that you want it to, because you think you're the baseline, then that's another way to be racist or energyist to somebody else. It's the same thing repackaged, just like religion, just like politics, just like science dogmas, okay? And so when I wrote toldja, the social and sexual revolutions of the 1960s in the San Francisco Bay Area, Manson Kacynski, divide and conquer, the cult of gang politics, religion, science were encouraged, and even new gangs were developed. 1968, history. In 1968, Mexican-American inmates of the California state prison system separated into two rival groups, Norteños, the Northerners, and the Sureños, Southerners, according to the location of their hometowns, okay? And when I was in San Jose, I was in downtown San Jose. I lived downtown San Jose. I worked at the Lucky store right next to San Jose State. And yeah, I was in a, what do you call those? An alternative school. Because I was placed in alternative school, and I was hanging out with a bunch of people that were in the juvenile system, as I was too, because I shoplifted. And I was dealing with people who claimed to be Crips or claimed to be Bloods or were part of the Mexican American prison stuff, whatever, the Norteños with the red bandanas. and all of that. And we were cruising, what is it? The El Camino in those cars that would, with the hydraulics. You've seen them, right? Maybe you haven't. But in California, they have the cars that would we have hydraulics in the back, and then one side would go up, another side would go up. And so I did all the cruising with the friends that I had at the time. And so San Jose was huge before it turned into like Silicon Valley. I mean, First Street had all the different bars with new performance artists and grunge, and then also the residual of the gang stuff. I mean, South San Jose, King and Story. I mean, geez, those First Street, Third. I mean, all that was such a time of that culture, so pronounced. Okay, and that came out in 1968. And so, yeah, the 80s was just all that residual, the offspring of those, and during that time, and they're being taught the gang culture, being taught, tagging here. And of course, LA had huge amounts of that, all that. So as far as the gang culture, I remember when I was with a nanny and the housekeeper for the family that I worked for, she lived in South Central LA. And I was like, since the 93 was the LA riots, and I really wanted to see what was it like over there in LA. In South Central, because I was in Hollywood at the time with the family, and I wanted to see what it was like to be in South Central. I was like so interested because I saw it all over the news. I'm like, I want to see South Central. I want to see where all those LA riots and Rodney King came from. So she invited me to go to Figueroa out there, and it was like really dirty. I mean, I took pictures. I mean, I was taking pictures of everything, and she showed me the neighborhood, and there was a person pushing a cart selling corn. And I was just like, the streets were really dirty. And I was just like, this is South Central. I mean, this is in the 90s, 96. Okay. And if I was traditionally going to graduate high school, it would have been like 93. But it was just a couple of years out of high school. And I'm, now exploring outside of my world. I'm like, oh, this is South Central. This is nothing like I thought, but what did I think? I didn't know what to expect. But I was so interested in understanding another culture, okay? That was my whole life, was just understanding everyone around me and understanding what was going on in the news and who was part of the news and who were all the players. And it was just so interesting. That's why moving to Ohio is so interesting. It's nothing like California over here, absolutely not. But I don't want it to be. I want it to be so freaking different. Because how many times can you look at a Mediterranean style home and nice streets and strip malls that are all high end, Pottery Barn? I mean, how many times can you look at Pottery Barn and Nordstrom and a nice mall with high end stuff and all these rich that gets boring. Just like going to a tourist spot like in China and just seeing like the Forbidden City, okay, the Temple of Heaven, all the touristy spots. But what do you really want to see? You want to see how the people lived. And then it's like, holy shit, people live in a stone house with running water, but there's no drainage system. So you're catching the water underneath the sink and then throwing it out in the backyard because they don't have a drainage system. That's how most of the people in China, or at least where I was at the time in 2004, 2005, were living 2004. And so maybe now, I mean, it's the same, but still, it was understanding the people, the culture, okay? That's awareness, is when you understand the world that you live in, understand a different culture. And so the rivalry with the Bloods are the Crips' main rival. The Bloods initially formed to provide Piru Street Gang members protection from the Crips. The rivalry started in 1960s when Washington and other Crip members attacked Sylvester Scott and Benson Owens, two students at Centennial High School. Okay, so then you wonder, how much was that encouraged? Who knows how organic, and then if it was encouraged, and the fanning the flames of division and violence, and you bring in the drugs and the heroin and all the crack cocaine, and now it's like a tinderbox, a destruction of generations of people through methamphetamines and crack cocaine. And so, so that's like the past. When you think about it, it's like the past. And you look at even now today with all the different religions, and then all the conspiracy people, and then all the politics, Democrat, Republican, Biden versus Trump, And then also the transition from the old world into the new world. And yeah, where we had the division, in capitalism and people that are supposed to work so hard and work for what? What are you working for? Working to die? Working to line somebody else's pockets? Working for someone who really has no interest in you staying alive, and definitely they're just taking your resources. And so this is where I want my J crowd who are serious about this to understand, what are you working for? What are you doing? And so when I had that attack of the past, where I was calling up the retirement homes, trying to figure out through my today mentality, trying to project what my mentality would be in the future, and you can't even predict the future, but you're dealing with a today's mentality. It was like the past and the present and the future all like trying to work itself out. And it's like a demon when you think about it. It's like yesterday when stuff was going on, with things moving around because of high electricity, and then my husband messing with electricity in the house, which I'm sure messes with the vibrations in the house. And we know there are spirits that are around. And so did, with him messing with electricity, develop a portal that allowed then things to be able to move and fall and slam and do whatever that even my husband really couldn't explain. But even though his head is trying to debunk it, he showed me the hairs on his arm were raised when he heard something, one of his things slam. Okay. And then I felt that feeling. Okay. So, so the attack of the past, which is like the dead people, an attack of the present and the future, that's what people are going to be dealing with today. That's what they're dealing with today already. That's what cancer disease and chronic illness and all the different criminal activity, it's the past and the present and the future, because people don't want to change for the future. You're seeing it already. People who are like millennials and they're major conservatives, they don't like the changes. They don't like what Biden's doing. They really want Trump to come in and lower the prices, lower the gas prices, do all these different things, but that's not the intention. There's going to be a nationalization of home, of rentals. We're going to head towards a more of a socialist society. That's where we're headed to. We're taking cues from Russia and Charlotte Iserbyt and her exposure to how the Department of Education is training people, okay, into a socialist system. China and all of what they're doing is helping the world get into a socialist system. It's not going to be as capitalistic as it used to be, and that's the future. And so you're seeing people already resisting the future, okay? And they're also resisting the present because they're taking all their pills, powder supplements, and detoxes and operations. And so they're not going to have a future if you're resisting the present, trying to always stay in the past, okay? And so when I finally, just like this morning, I woke up and I had a weird dream something, or I was actually yelling at somebody, but no sound came out because a bill, like a dining bill, like a dinner bill, came up to be like $486 in my dream. And then the waiter's like, well, you have to pay twice that amount. You have to pay now $800 or $900 or $800 and something dollars because somebody else bought something there, and this is how the bill came up. And then I'm like, okay. And then someone else told me, oh no, they're lying to you. They're lying to you. And I'm like, what? And then I'm just yelling. I was like, this place sucks. This place sucks. I mean, I was yelling in my dream, but I couldn't hear myself, but I can see my mouth open up, yelling at somebody, saying, this place sucks. I'm getting out of here, da, da, da. And so that was like the activity, and I slept in. I mean, I was up around 3 a.m. and turning off the TV because my husband fell asleep downstairs because he has a fan now that's keeping him cool. And so then I come back upstairs and I just go back to sleep, and I slept hard for like from 3 to 7, 3, 4, 5, for 4 hours. Holy shit. So I slept until 7 o'clock this morning. And then I woke up going like, okay, where's the cheapest place to retire? And I looked up Social Security. And yeah, if you both are alive and you retire, you both get your retirement, you both get your Social Security, and it'd be a combined thing. If one spouse happens to pass away, then the one spouse will get the higher of the two. So you're not combining both together. Okay. And so then I'm thinking like, okay, so there's that. So I clarified how retirement would be paid out to someone who are both alive, two people who are both alive, like a couple, or someone who survived somebody else. So now I have to plan, okay, now what am I going to do in the future? Okay, so it looks like it's better not to be in a retirement home. That would be nice, it'd be kind of cool, but that's not the place for me. It would be better to live in a place like Canton, Ohio, and retire here because it's going to be cheaper, and my house will be whatever it's going to be, and I can afford it even on just my husband's if he happens to pass away, or we both retire, and we can live off that and scale down our liabilities, and it would be fine, it'd be comfortable, and it'd be okay. And then we'd have to fix up the place and make sure that it stays long term. And I'll be strong enough then, because why wouldn't I be? I'm strong enough today. So this is what I wrote. I said, so yep, I'm going to stay here, retire here, invest in here, Ohio, where I live. No need to go to retirement home. I'll be strong enough. The attack of the past and the future was so unmistakable, as if they were overlapping. The present is a combination of the past in the future. Sometimes people's future are the past. Okay, and some of you are dealing with the past because you're not willing to change and release the demons, like I did yesterday after that attack of whatever that portal opened up as far as electricity surge. So that's a trip. And then yesterday, the energy surge, like a small electrical portal was open, where I felt like I took on some kind of spirit that I felt like I was fighting a demon inside. I felt the far away feeling, and then I had to go to the restroom and release the demons. Okay, because when you keep in demons that you're fighting inside, that you're sharing space with, they're going to take resources. That's the aging process. That's the aging process, when you are taking in entities that are not being released, and you guys are fighting for resources, and they're winning because you're getting older. What do you mean getting older? You're aging out. You're shrinking. Your collagen's being sucked out. I mean, so many things, and it's so gradual. And we've been conditioned to accept that, to accept the spirits cannibalizing our insides and then age out and die. And so now it's time to think something different, right? And so when you finally become uncured, you have to deal with the past before you get the demons of the future. So a lot of you have to deal with the past demons. Then once you deal with the past, then you got to deal with the future. How are you going to deal with transitioning from one world to another? What kind of jobs will be available? Who is going to be around? What will the economy be like? What will the climate be like? What will your house be like? What will your neighborhood be like? I mean, these are all the things that when you finally deal with the past, because now you have room to think about the future and plan for the future. But those that haven't dealt with the past, they will still stay in the past and resist the present, and definitely resist the future. Okay? So when you finally become uncured, you have dealt with the past before you have to deal with the past before you deal with the demons of the future. And so once the future and the past are settled and aligned, the present becomes a gift. Like the present is a gift. But you have to deal with the past, and you have to deal with the future. And then the present, now you know what you're working for. Okay? So like a present. Because what are you working for? Who are you working for? Who are you giving your life blood to, and why? Make sure the energy you are expending will keep you alive. And if you understand the J world, make sure who and what you're working for will align with your intentions of longevity. Make sure no energy is being used more than you can retain and regenerate over time. Okay, so all these Republicans are like, oh God, you got to work until you fucking die, and you're such a lazy person, you're this and you're that. Those are their demons trying to make you join them into working themselves to death. So when people have expectations to pass away someday, they don't understand those who have to figure out how to conserve their energy, to spread out their energy usage over a long period of time, and how well they use their energy, and for what and for why. And so these Republicans, very conservative people, who absolutely have no tolerance for someone trying to fucking save themselves. And you see it out there on Facebook. They're like, oh, you're lazy, you're not working. Why should you not work, and why should I? Well, you fucking chose to because of your expenses and your lifestyle. And so you can spend your whole life working at a job and retire and pass away. But what was it all for? I guess if you're living for the weekends, which most people do, they live for the weekends and they live for their vacations because they want that social capital from their friends and family. Oh, she works so hard. Oh, he works so hard. God, they're so great. They're our sacrificial lamb. We just keep taking resources from them. But they don't have any expectation they will have a life outside of their job and outside of their social circles. Their life is their job and their social circles. Nothing is wrong with that, but not everybody lives in that paradigm. Okay? That's where tolerance must come into play, and understand why people do what they do. They're not living for what you're living for. They're living for the present and the future. And those are the gift of foresight and planning. Know what will happen and must learn how to face what will happen in the future. If you don't deal with the pain now, which is facing the past and the future. Later, it will be so much greater because you were never prepared for it. You were too busy resisting and being an activist and doing this and doing that and getting social capital and getting validation from everybody around you, and you had absolutely no intention to take care of yourself really, because it was all giving resources to everybody else. And then when the day comes when your body can't handle your fucking lifestyle and you get taken down several notches, that's the pain that people are not ready to face. And they try to justify it and be okay with it and drug it out or be under the influence or carve it out and justify it. And they will get people validating them for saying whatever they're saying about the situation they're in. But that is appropriate in everything. Finances, relationships, biochemistry, body, mind, and spirit. If you don't deal with the pain now, the pain later will be so much greater because you weren't prepared for it. And you never prepared for it because you let your friends and your family and your politics, religion, and science completely distract you from dealing with what is going to happen. That is inevitable to happen. But people are like, oh, I don't want to face that. I don't want to deal with that. I'll wait till it happens. But when it happens, you may not be prepared for it, and the pain will be that much greater. And so I face the pain of not knowing what's going to happen in the future. What will I do? How will I do it? Will I be able to afford it? That's the stuff that I want you guys to figure, be comfortable with questioning and being in that space of uncertainty. It's not going to kill you to deal with the pain of the future, the pain of the present, and the pain of the past. And it's in body, mind, and spirit. Okay? But you have to understand where all this pain's coming from. It's unresolved issues and fears. And once you face your unresolved issues and fears, it's not going to be bad. Then you figure out, what are you going to do today? Then you will then realign and reconsider what you are working for today. And maybe you might need to take a step back in your job. Maybe you might need to extricate yourself from people who are influencing you to distract yourself from longevity if you're trying to change. Some of you are absolutely too far gone. There's no fucking way you're going to change, and you get too much social capital, too much validation from people around you to even consider a change. And that's fine. But those in the J world who are fucking serious, this is what you must start looking at and taking inventory and doing pros and cons and doing the math on figure out what it is your expenses, what it is that you're living on, what it is that who you're working for and why, who's in your world that's taking away your resources, and why are you giving them resources when you really are not getting a return that is going to help you. I mean, that's the thing of balancing out assets and liabilities. Is this person asset or is this person a liability? Is this hobby an asset or is it a liability? Assets and liabilities are a huge thing in body, mind, and spirit. But people don't make those connections because they only look at assets and liabilities as something like financial and money, but they don't look at people in their world as either an asset or a liability. And sometimes your kids could be a liability, not an asset. But remember, the whole family. Maybe people who are giving up their life, blood, to their kid who really has no intention of taking care of themselves and helping themselves. But they're still giving everything to their kid because they were told that, to be a good mom or a good dad or a good friend, that you sacrifice yourself and give every single bit of lifeblood and finances to something that is never, ever going to help themselves, ever. But that's not for me to say and do and say that's wrong or right. That's that person's choice. But that's been the crazy brainwashing of self-sacrifice, is that you sacrifice yourself for someone else who's already going down the hill. And so then you both are gone together. So J-World, reconsider everything that you've ever been taught. Start taking inventory of your assets and liabilities because they could be people in your world. All right, bye.